What's up, Forgotten Dogginators? I needed a fan name for my 4 subscribers, and that's what you guys are. Welcome back to another episode of Forgotten Dogs, the biggest and best show on the internet, where we are going to be showing some love to some NBA role players that I don't think get enough credit. Today's player is maybe the first player that I've talked about on this account where they're not an amazing player, but they're a loved player, especially in the NBA community. And for that reason, today I will be talking about none other than the one-time NBA champion, Marco Belinelli. Not only was Marco Belinelli a former teammate of one of my favorite NBA role players, Aaron Baines, on the 2013 San Antonio Spurs, but he was also the first NBA champ to be born out of Italy. Believe it or not, that's what my computer said, and that's pretty impressive. Italy is a little underrepresented in the NBA. Paolo Banchero has ties to Italy, and he's amazing. Danilo Gallinari, of course. Andrea Bargnani, of course. Nico Mannion. Shout out Arizonan Nico Mannion. Simone Fontecchio. Here's a little fact you can take with you today. Marco Belinelli was the first NBA champ out of Italy. Now, that isn't the only unique, interesting stat that I put together for this video. I did a little bit of research, and I found out that he is one of 5 players to have won the NBA three-point contest in the same year that they won the NBA championship. Only him in 2014, Steph Curry in 2015, Steve Kerr in 1997, Craig Hodges in 91 and 92, and Larry Bird in 1986 have done this. So not to say like Marco Belinelli is the best shooter of all time, but like he's at least top 5 if you're looking at that metric that has nothing to do with it. But really, that's all Marco Belinelli's game was three-pointers, 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 three-pointers. In every year but 1 year of his 13-season-long career, 41% or more of Marco Belinelli's shots came from behind the three-point line. The only season where that wasn't the case was 2012-2013, and it was still 36% of his shots. And it was in 2012-2013, so he was ahead of his time. But Marco Belinelli definitely isn't the player that needs to be remembered for his NBA career, but simply there's something about his, I mean, you hear this word tossed around a lot in the modern NBA. There's something about his aura, or if you can even put your finger on what his aura is, that I just eat up. Now, I've always loved Marco Belinelli. I grew up a 2K guy. I might have mentioned this in my first video. The first 2K I got was 2013, and that's like really the only game I've consistently played my whole life is 2K. There was something about Marco Belinelli. I just always wanted him on my team. Maybe it was just that he was elite from 3 and it was fun to shoot. Maybe that his last name is fun to say. I don't know. Maybe it was because he was on the Spurs when they were winning championships, so I thought he was a lot better than he was. I don't know. It's just Marco Belinelli, and it always has been Marco Belinelli. But when you look at his stats, like obviously nothing doesn't stand out crazy. He never averaged more than 12.1 points per game, but he obviously was a great shooter. He had 2 seasons where he shot above 40% from 3, one of those being 43%. And then other than 1 year in Sacramento in 2015-2016, sort of towards the end of his career, he shot in the mid to high 30s, which was also very valuable. He also was a great free throw shooter. He shot 90% twice in his career and 89% once. So you could say 3 times he shot above 90, but whatever. That depends on how generous you're feeling. But no, he was a high volume 3-point shooter. He was an effective 3-point shooter, and that's really all you got out of him. He was kind of a mid defender. I'll say mid, and that's being a little generous. His defensive rating stayed basically at or well below the league average every year until a short 3-year stretch from 2012 to 2015-ish, where he was average, but then his defensive rating plummeted again. But he had some years where his offensive rating was pretty solid. I mean, it helps when you're shooting as efficiently as you do, especially from the three-point line. But he was a guy that wasn't getting a ton of minutes, so like he's not going to have a ton of run. He was a guy that never played a full season. The most games he played in a season was 80, and he did that 3 times. But also, he wasn't expected to be the number 1 guy or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 on a team. But there's just something about him I like. I can't put my finger on it, but I like him enough that I want to make a video about him. But similar to Ricky Rubio, who who I made a video about. Similar to him, he was a guy that was really involved in the international game. He played 11 total seasons overseas, playing in the LBA and also played in the EuroLeague, and he currently still is playing over there. He's playing for Virtus Bologna? No way that's the team name. That's awesome. He's playing for Virtus Bologna. I'm gonna sound so stupid for this, but he's still playing. He's playing 20 minutes a game this year. He's averaging 7.4 3-pointers a game, which is his highest of his international career, and he's making about half of those. He's shooting 41.5% from three, so he's 38 years old and he's still getting his own. He's had a bit more of an increased role when playing in his native country, and he had a few seasons where he averaged in the 12 to 16 range for points, along with playing upper 20s to 31 minutes a game. So overall, that's good for him. He's still playing. He's making it work. He's got a career. He's also played in the Euro Cup, and he's played in the FIBA games. He's still staying really involved in the world of basketball. And he's hanging up there in the best of the leagues that he's playing in, too. In the 2020-2021 season, he was 5th in true shooting percentage at 69.4%. That's nice. He's got 7 seasons where he shot in the top 14 as far as 3-point field goals made, and 5 of those 7 were 7th or better. In the 2020-2021 season, he led his team, Virtus Bologna. I'm gonna feel terrible if I'm wrong, but it's spelled Bologna. Oh my god, I've been saying it wrong this whole video. Hopefully I'm able to cut out part of the times when I've said it wrong. I feel so terrible now. In the Euro Cup of that season, the 2020-2021 season, he led his team to a 10-0 record, averaging the most points on that team with 17 points a game. They were not the champions of that league, but obviously that's still impressive. In the playoffs, they were 3-2. They came in second in that league, and they were 2 games behind the first place finisher. But I feel like I've led myself down a rabbit hole sort of with Marco Belinelli's international stats to where I don't even really know what I'm talking about anymore. But I'll just ramble off the sort of things that I'm thinking in my head about Marco Belinelli to kind of round out this video. I really enjoy, now that I understand basketball a little bit more, I really enjoy watching those Spurs teams and kind of understanding the way that they played and the nuance of their game and the spots that they valued on the floor and what they valued out of their players. And it's especially interesting to see a guy like Marco Belinelli produce for a team that was that defensively good when he was kind of unreliable on defense. I watched a few highlights before I started recording, and it's fun to watch his movement in the offense because you think of him as such a 3-point shooter, but obviously when you're playing under Pop and you're playing in that Spurs system, you learn how to see the floor and move around without the ball. And it's entertaining to see that now, understanding different parts of the game. That's all I gotta say. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a wonderful day. I will see you all later.